A pleasure to meet all at last. Welcome once again to films I'm willing to talk about again. So for today, it is a Wednesday, and I'm especially proud to say we definitely have a lot of new material worth to cover. I mean, there was of course a recent new film called Harold and the Purple Crayon, but apart from that, I will say that it might as well be time to get back to business at hand. On Monday, I talked a bit about How to Train Your Dragon, but today I would like to focus my attention a bit on another film, How to Train Your Dragon 2. So, for the rest of the week, this has basically been a priority one focus that I intend to make for the series at the moment. Much like how I've talked a bit about Transformers and made a little marathon out of it, and much like how in the future I'm probably going to have to start talking about other franchises that I've watched over the years. But until then, we're going to get on going here. The story of Berk, and the story of Hiccup, and all that good stuff. Because the massive success of How to Train Your Dragon back in 2010, and even going so far as to get some shows and other such merchandise and whatnot, it was a big success. Like, way more than Shrek. But, in this case, How to Train Your Dragon 2 is something that I had been begging for a long time, and it took a good 4 years until we were finally able to get it. So, as part of my 15th birthday present, I actually had the chance to go watch it in theaters, and when I did, I was more than stoked about what they could possibly bring out. And of course, 10 years later, I still feel just as great as how I did when I first saw it in theaters. 25 compared to 15 sure has been quite a long run, and the many strings of events that have transpired since then, but you know what? For a year, that actually was surprisingly excellent. I never would have figured 2014 could have been any more awesome. At the same time, we had Transformers Age of Extinction and Unbroken and a bunch of other things happened. But anyways, How to Train Your Dragon 2 simply gives us a bit of a clip note of what the first film's events were like, and then simply transcends through a 5-year long period. A time skip that takes place a while after the events of the first film. Basically, with 5 years of time that has occurred since the events of How to Train Your Dragon Part 1 had come to an end, with the Queen Dragon being defeated, most of the dragons in her reign being freed, sent to Berk to help work and train and even play with the locals of Berk itself, with Astrid, Snotlout, and Gronkles, and Monstrous Nightmares, and of course the almighty Toothless, the Night Fury himself. The thing is that Hiccup intends to do a bit more than just simply bring the dragons to his homeland. And of course to have the trust of Stoic the Vast and company, not only to have good peace with the dragons and the Vikings, but he also intends on simply uncovering uncharted lands that cross all over the world. And they could possibly be littered with all sorts of gems. Not just by dragons, but by other things as well. He intends to do the explorations that his father had done all the time. And well, during a game of dragon races with the likes of Snotlout and Astrid aboard their dragons, the Monstrous Nightmare, and of course Stormfly, while Stoic the Vast is trying to find out where his son Hiccup had gone, the games get quite incredible. A sight for sore eyes, by all means. But of course, once Astrid wins the race, surprise, surprise, Stoic ends up calling her his future daughter-in-law. Yep, you heard that right. Hiccup and Astrid apparently are together and in a serious relationship, so there's no doubt about it. They apparently do intend on getting married one day. But by all means, this doesn't necessarily coincide with a lot of things. While Hiccup and Toothless are out exploring, still, some other things take place. And these things, of course, can range from the usual conversations, as well as the wonderless exports that take place. But you know what? The explorations still go down, and what do you know? It's not only the fact that Hiccup has certainly gotten better in technological advancements, making upgrades to Toothless, making him more capable, more streamlined, and much better in terms of flight as well as speed maneuvers. It turns out that Hiccup himself had dismounted from Toothless because he wanted to try something new. A wingsuit. Yep. Artificial leather wings that he himself had crafted to create a pair of wings for himself to keep up with the likes of Toothless in flight. And boy, does he do a pretty good job at it. Yeah. While it doesn't totally work out in his favor, he still at least has some good effort, as well as a lot of potential in advancements in technology. So, it does seem that while Hiccup isn't totally witty about the situation at hand, and probably not the best in terms of his overall navigation, and possibly not knowing his own strength, he still is very hopeful and optimistic about the future. So, of course, while he and Astra do exchange a bit of a conversation, Stormfly and Toothless get into their own juju. Well, it turns out that there actually happens to be a certain village that had gone on fire. And this village, apparently, is just a set of remains. Remains that they didn't expect to show up at some point. A voice known by the name of Irette, whom is in fact a dragon trapper, apparently is pointing the blame on the two for the destruction of this fort that he created. Yeah, who would have thought? Two travelers whom stumbled across a certain burnt fort, apparently they're the two people that they believe are responsible for the destruction of it, and it's just crazy, you know? Well, apparently it goes even further than this. Irette basically believes that they are a part of Drago. And you might be wondering, who is Drago? Well, apparently he himself is considered a dragon master, a conqueror of some sorts, a person whom is unwilling to give up. And much like how we had seen with the Vikings in the past, this Drago character apparently is hell-bent on conquering, complete annihilation of anything that stands in his way. And the thing is, it kind of just gives away the fact that perhaps he's the one who's responsible for all this. Because we know Hiccup and Astrid weren't behind this. But as we know, Irette doesn't totally know about the whole entire truth of the story. So still pointing the blame at them, that's basically what it is. But eventually, when Hiccup and Astrid do return home, Stoic basically does want him to, believe it or not, become the new successor of him. You see, Stoic has basically been the chieftain of the town itself. And he actually tries to convince Hiccup to become his successor one day, but apparently, during the whole reign of that conversation, he apparently gets some bad news. Gobber, whom you might remember, has been around since the very beginning just as well, and is a good friend of Stoic the Vast, apparently comes around and apparently, well, lockdown ensures. Yeah, you would think that that would take place. And well, it turns out that there is actually another dragon rider. This time it's a bit more on the mysterious side. And wouldn't you know, he also has a name, Valka. And well, when Hiccup and some others try to go after, well, of course this is more about Irette and less about Valka, but when Hiccup and Toothless actually find them in her clutches, well, they're taken to a certain cave of some sorts. And Valka, well, she happens to see the residual facial hairs on Hiccup's face and realizes he is, in fact, her lost son. Yeah, this is basically a big turn of events that we certainly didn't see coming. I mean, Valka is the mother of Hiccup. End of story. And the dragon she's known to ride is called Cloud Jumper. As for, well, this cave that she took them to, turns out it is in fact the home to a large group of dragons. So it turns out that that certain island where that queen was occupying in the last film apparently wasn't enough. And now we have this to deal with. So that's even more of an impressive twist if you ask me. Oh man, apparently this little world here that they've occupied for some time, and well, Valka does explain about what had happened. She was taken away from Hiccup as a baby. By a dragon, nonetheless. And it does seem that while other things could probably have gone down, she actually does tell him that she, believe it or not, actually had the same intentions as Hiccup did, trying to convince Stoic the Vast to coexist with the dragon heritage. And while it didn't succeed at first, Hiccup certainly did, coincidentally, do more or less the same thing. Carry on the legacy of his mother, whom he had never known, because he was a baby, obviously. But nonetheless, being that with the 5 years that had passed since the defeat of the Queen in the first film, Hiccup definitely did a great job allowing the dragons and the Vikings to coexist, and etc. But you know what? It clearly doesn't end at this very point in time. No. Because truly, what we hear by the end of the film is not only about the true intentions of Drago, whom as we know is voiced by Digimon Hunso, and you might remember when I talked a bit about Digimon Hunso, whom again, maybe I'm not pronouncing correctly, maybe I am, but let me know in the comment section below how his name is truly pronounced. But anyways, this same actor, believe it or not, was in A Quiet Place Day 1. One of the first new films I talked about in this new season of films I'm willing to talk about again, and with many more that are out now, I sure will have lots more to say about these new pieces. Anyways though, apparently, with all the new stuff that's gone down, you'd think that they would at least get some sign of peace. And with the new Eret in mind, and now with another name, Drago, that's two names that we gotta keep an eye on. We know Eret technically is more on the neutral side, going so far as to accuse the Riders of Berk for the destruction of his fort and believing that they are on the same page as with Drago, but they have nothing to do with him. They don't even know what he looks like. But sure enough, when he finally does appear, it truly is all hell breaks loose. It's not only an intense fight, but it is a fight of a lifetime because, you know, I recall watching a video about the visual effects artist who was able to create the incredible effects on the dragon that Drago in fact tamed. And might I just say, the proportions of this one are possibly even greater than the Queen from the last one. And boy, he doesn't mess around. You know, he carries all sorts of crazy powers apart from his giant elephant-like tusks. And you know, you'd think that they would have it easy there. But no, Drago just shows no mercy to anybody. Even worse, Stoic actually ends up getting involved. And not only that, but Hiccup ends up getting close to a blast zone. That dragon, I tell you, was ready to kill him on the spot. But Stoic comes in and saves him, only to let himself get killed. And that truly is a big mistake. It basically allows Hiccup and Toothless and the rest to realize this is definitely not like what we had seen before then. You know, 10 years later, I still feel really bad about what had transpired then. I mean, it really is quite an anomaly of events. One might wonder though, what would How to Train Your Dragon 4 be like? I mean, that's something that has yet to truly be around. Anyways though, back to part 2. The whole thing ends just as we would expect. Hiccup and Toothless have the courage, the fighting and tenacity necessary to defeat Drago, the giant dragon that he's tamed, and basically, by the end of it all, the battle's won, and with Eret, well, they all realize they are not on his side. So, when Drago's defeated, they've proven their worth. And Eret does feel more confident in mind. So, you know what? It basically does come around to another happy ending here. So I am more than confident to say this was, in fact, quite a sequel worth talking about. With a lot of emotional bits, a lot of nice twists, a lot of ways to create a larger world with the building elements that they had in mind, and also allow for Hiccup to become a more skilled Viking. A warrior beyond comprehension. Knowing that he and his loyal dragon Toothless, the legendary Night Fury, they were able to take down the Queen in the first film and a ruthless conqueror in the second film. This basically brought us to wonder, what could we have possibly gotten from what a third film could offer? Well, that's a story for Friday. Until then, I give this film a nice big 8.4 out of 10.1. While I wouldn't go so far to say that it was as great as the first film could have possibly given us, it still did feel like its own unique masterpiece. Its world-building elements and its creative input sure did allow for a multitude of different things to unfold. And well, with part 3, we were able to get even more, believe it or not. And it was an unexpected thing that I had not seen coming. But like I said, wait until Friday and I will have that revisitation of that film up and running. I hope to do better than I did the last time I reviewed that film. But until then, I will see you guys then, and hopefully I'll do even better with this next film.
I want you, but I don't have you yet. I ain't got no tricks to be playing on you.